a word of warning, this will be a very painful, tedious procedure. And with that, welcome to the video tutorial for Sanguinius's wings. To begin, we need to undercoat the wings in black, and then add a white zenithal highlight on top using Opaque White by Medea Com Art. Look to push the highlights towards the outer edges of the wing. Then using a Nadir shadow, so a shadow from directly below, we are using Opaque Violet to pigment the wings. When you buy this miniature, you will come to realise just how jam-packed full of detail it is. And any normal, sane human being would probably only be painting one of these. So take your time, even though we will be highlighting each and every feather individually, not once but twice. Once it is done, it will be a joy forever. Okay, so with the wings themselves, Sanguinius's wings, they are problematic because they are depicted as the purest white that white can be. At this stage, Opaque White and a touch of Thunderhawk Blue for the mid-tone. Sorry, where was I? Yeah, the whitest of the white, the purest of the purest. The problem with that is it can lead to an awfully boring looking surface. And if we look at, say, a swan's wings, which we have in the corner in the notebook section, you can see that even though they are pure brilliant white, they do get affected by ambient light a lot more. Because they are so pure, because they have such a purity in the wing and in the white, they do reflect their ambient surroundings a lot more. That's why when you see swan's wings, examples in photographs, etc., they can look yellow, magenta, even brilliant blue, because they reflect the surroundings, the ambient light, so much more effectively than a grey or the common dirty pigeon. If you want to paint Sanguinius's wings like a common dirty pigeon, I suppose I'll leave a comment in the Facebook. Leave me a comment on Facebook. Leave a comment here underneath the Patreon video. If it gets enough, okay, I'll paint him like a dirty pigeon wings. Yeah, why not? I mean, April 1st is coming around the corner. I'm sure I'll be able to produce a video for that. Right, where was I? Okay, so we are using the white plus Thunderhawk Blue. You can see it's quite a very, very light grey. When we apply this over the top, we aren't looking for that instant transition. We aren't trying to get that eye-bleeding edge directly from the purple to the white. We do want to build this up in a few layers. The first layer we're adding here, you can see it pigments the purple and the grey slightly. The secondary coat will produce a whiter, cleaner edge, and then the third coat again. I would urge you not to push the highlights up to a pure white. I would probably stop after this stage. I think one of the problems looking back on my own Sanguinius is that I over-highlighted the wings initially with the airbrush stage. Leave them slightly darker, leave them slightly darker, because when we come to refine it with the brush stages, it will have so much more pop and so much more energy by doing that. And this is where I left off my Sanguinius's wings. Sanguinii wings, the singular of Sanguinius is wings. Very handsome they are too. It's a wonderful sculpt to deal with. It is a really, really wonderful sculpt. Okay, now I'm taking Quelea Green Shade by GW, and I'll be demonstrating this technique on a single strand of the pinion wings. Each set of Sanguinius wings that I painted took 6 hours to complete. Now I'm sure you don't want to sit around watching an 8-hour video, that's why I've condensed it down to 11, and I'm showing you the technique on one particular portion. We need to run the Quelea Green Shade into the shadows. Now this is a very light feathering motion with the brush. Very light movement, very light pressure applied to the miniature. And we are using just the very, very tip. We aren't using the belly whatsoever. We just want to use the very tip of the brush to define the shadows of each and every individual feather. I am well aware that this is a very tedious procedure, Make sure that you have a good audiobook next playing in the background. Have a TV series on. You can just mentally linger on that and not this. Something to distract you as you go through the very almost mechanical process of getting these individual feathered wings. This isn't a very glorious stage. We aren't doing anything spectacular. We aren't doing anything amazing with the brush. We just need very neat, consistent lines. Next up, we are using Drutchy Violet, and we are pushing this into the very darkest shadows. Now, this is to reinforce the Elendil Violet, the opaque violet we used in the initial layer, and it is meant to represent the underglow from the magma effect. It doesn't quite have that hellish red tint to it, but instead it's softened slightly by the purity of the angel's wings. So we do have that hint of magma glow underneath, but it isn't so obvious. Okay, next up we are using Birch by Scale 75. I had to run off and check my notes, make sure it's the right kind of ivory colour. Essentially any skull colour will do us in this scenario. Don't feel like you have to be beholden to Birch. Similar process, but instead of deepening the shadows, we are pushing the mid-tone to highlight. I would recommend that your paint be slightly thicker than normal, so when we do leave an indelible mark with our brush, it stays in place. If we used too watery, too runny a paint, it wouldn't stick and it would just gloop in all the areas that we've built up with our Drutchy Violet and the Coelia Green shade. So at this stage, it needs to be nearly out of the pot thickness, with just a pinch of water to make sure it runs off the brush easier. And again, light pressure, we are only using the very tip of our brush for this procedure. This is meant to give a basis for when we do build up with pure white after this. So we run the gamut between a warmer mid-tone, cooler shadows, and finally a cool highlight up top. And this way we're kind of sandwiching the cool tones and the warm tones together to produce a much more interesting result than just spraying it in various shades of grey. If we did that, it wouldn't have the luster. Sanguinius's wings, even though they may look whiter, they would look a lot less interesting. With the wings we've built up here, they reflect the ambient surroundings and they do give a sense of purity to the piece. Next up, I'm using pure ivory to highlight what we've just done. This is our final highlight. We can add spots of pure white here and there, especially towards the tips of the feathers, but that is it. That is the procedure. So we airbrush the entire thing with black, highlight it with pure white, add a underglow of opaque violet, use Thunderhawk plus white mixture around 70-30 in favour of the white, and then we start the detailing process with Drutchy Violet and Coelia Green shade into the shadows, and then build up the mid-tone to highlight each and every single feather with birch and then ivory, and you can add a pinch of white if your sanity holds out long enough. Now again, this isn't one of the glorious parts of miniature painting. This isn't wet blending, it's not loaded brush technique, it's not a particularly sexy technique. Make sure you have something to occupy your time while you do this. It feels odd saying that, producing a video to specifically paint the wings, but if we're honest with ourselves, some portions of miniature painting are tedious. In order to break that cycle of tedium, have a video on, load up a tutorial, why not? I mean, you're on the Patreon already, load up something else. While this is going on, load up another portion of the Sanguinius tutorial, the face, to give you a grounding of what to do next. Hell, binge watch True Detective. If you do use this for your own miniature, please send me photographs. I'd love to, so we can share the pain. We can form a support group with each other. Please, please, please let me know how it goes for you. And that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. It's only on a tiny portion, but you can see what the final result looks like when done across his wings. It really is spectacular, and it does pay off to put in the tedious legwork. Okay, I'll catch you in the next one. Let's look at a sexier video next time. Let's look at faces. Let's look at Sanguinius's face in particular. I'll show you how to get the best from drawing attention to that beautiful angelic visage. Okay, I'll catch you in the next one, guys. Thank you so much. Bye bye.